My name is Sherry Brown. I live at 35 Kirk Street. I guess I would be addressing Mr. Reno. At the last meeting and at this meeting, I've heard that there have been air quality tests done at that house at 33 Kirk Street. Bactronics doesn't do air quality tests. They do surface quality tests, which when we looked up, my daughter and I looked up the nanotechnology that Bactronics uses, and it's basically to approve it for FDA for food service, which is not making that a healthy home. The roof was replaced on the little garage, but I don't know if it's actually straight or not. And then the dumpster has sat there for almost a week, which is exactly what I was concerned about prior to this whole situation starting, is that these dumpsters were going to sit there and the decay was just going to sit there, and that's exactly what's happened. As far as Mr. Fortunato assured us and the City Council in June that this situation was going to be over in 90 days. That means the whole situation. That is not going to happen. That's obvious to me. Spring of 2017, Mr. Reno, I met you in the fall of 2013, if you remember correctly. Spring of 2017. This is insane. I suggest that something be done with the information I provided Mr. Tish and Mr. LaCicero about doing something about these homes. Because I'm going to be stuck next to this house until the day I move out of my house. And I already know that. But everybody needs to make a decision and actually enforce it. And I will not sit there and listen to people say that these are air quality tests. This company is not making this home safe. No remediation has been done. Nothing has been removed.
Well, I was just asking the city manager, the fire district, the chief is going to conduct air quality tests in there.
And is he doing that himself, or is he having a company come
I
in?
don't know that. I don't know that.
So now I have to deal with the fire chief?
Yeah, I'm certainly not qualified to address
The
any.
fire
terms of
chief
that
is the only
issue, yeah.
person making decisions about this now?
No, I'm talking, you asked about air quality tests, and I'm answering a question about air quality tests, and that is, my understanding is the fire chief will do that. As to any other issues, we'll answer your questions. You asked a question about air quality. I gave you an answer about air quality.
When is the air quality test going to be done? After the fire chief?
Before the work. That's why we want the 3-day notice, so that the fire chief can get in there, run some air quality tests before they do any ripping apart of anything. That's my
And there's no more
understanding.
timeline than that?
Pardon me?
There's no more timeline than that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Sherry, the way I'm looking at this is that the city focuses on zoning, right? Zoning adherence. The police, or the fire chief, is responsible to ensure air quality and that the mold is handled. That's the division of labor, so to speak. And he's not here, he doesn't report to the city, he is part of, right, township and the city. So you can't answer those questions about when he's going to test for air, right?
Well, my issue was the fact that it's been mentioned at these meetings twice now that we already have air quality tests and we don't. It was termed as air quality test instead of being surface quality tests, and I would like that changed for public record, because those are strictly surface quality tests. Which means that if I clean this little dot right here and made it safe to cut my tomato on, and you cut your tomato on any countertop at 33 Kirk Street and died from whatever is growing in that house, they could still prove that right there you could cut your tomato and you can eat it. And that does not make that home safe. And that, I just wanted that entered into public record. Because I get to sit there and watch it, and so do the rest of my neighbors. And to have it said at these meetings that things are happening and this is going on, and 10 days that house has been worked on since they ripped that roof off. 10 days. So, Thank you.
Thank you. Under recognition of persons desiring to speak before council, I ask you to step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and keep your comments brief. Dennis Machuli?
Good evening. My name is Dennis McCulch. I live at 70 Barnstone Lane in the city, which is the main street in Villas, street for the Villas. I have two concerns in my question here, I guess. And the first one would be the residents are kind of concerned for the DRA that's in our development. I assume that it was there in the very beginning when the property was platted out by the first builder who went bankrupt. And we're just concerned if it's meeting code. Because as the villas have been built, there's been a lot of dirt pushed around, and the DRA runs on the back side of the far eastern side of the development. And it goes downhill and goes all the way down and goes into a culvert area. Well, as they built these villas, you know, the dirt seems like when you stand up at the top and kind of look down the line where the ditch goes, you know, some property lines are out here, some are kind of in a little bit, and things have been pushed over the edge a little bit. And I'm not saying that it's not proper, but we're just concerned in case we ever have a period of time where we have something like a 50-year flood or a horrendous amount of rain. And if it doesn't function right, then the villas that are at the bottom of the street on the flat where the cul-de-sac is, you know, if the water rose significantly, then there's a possibility that it could flood down there. And all the villas have full basements, and then it could back up into the basements or cause a problem. And also I've noticed I live on the opposite side of the street, and my backyard butts against the city cemetery.
This is when you're going to talk to Gene Russo.
And I noticed when the developer built it, they put a big strip of land down through there that humps up in the air and planted pine trees on it, and that separates the cemetery from the back of the villas. I noticed on the other side of the hump on the cemetery side, I noticed there's a drain back there. And it has a metal grate over it, and I can see the pipe goes in towards where this big hump is. And I'm assuming, because it's the lowest spot on that piece of property, and I know from speaking to Mr. Todd over there that the water would run down that part of the cemetery and build up, and there's no place for it to go. So the water has to be going in that pipe if it ever gets deep enough, and I'm assuming that it goes underneath that hump and it goes through our backyards, and the villa that I live in has some extra space between my villa and the one next door. And we think the pipe comes around and comes down and goes into our normal drain, which we only have two drains on the whole street. They're right at the bottom, one on my side of the street, one on the other. Then when you go across the street and follow it out to the DRA, there's two large pipes that are probably 12 or 16 inches in circumference. All the drain water that comes out of the villas, like spoutings, sump pumps, and whatever comes down the street, feeds into those two drains, including this pipe that comes back from the cemetery, and it all goes into that DRA. And we were concerned that everything is proper in that drain because the builder, who's Russo Builders, is working on the very last villa of the street. It'll be complete and he'll be gone. And we just want to know if everything's okay there, because once he's gone, then we don't know what would happen after that. And the second part of my question for you gentlemen is the street itself. And I'm sure that other developments maybe have similar situations, but being our development's considered private and we have the responsibility of our own street, by them building the villas over a period of years, even though Mr. Russo bought the properties out of bankruptcy, he tries to tell us when I have spoken with him casually. And it sounds like he has no intention of finishing the street or blacktopping it. That they're just going to leave it for the residents of the Villa Association. So there's 20 villas in there, but we're going to have to pay to build this street up because there's sections of the street where the initial road bed is 3 inches below the concrete curbing, and the water can't get up on the curbing to get down to the 2 drains that go back into the DRA, so it just lays in the street. And we know that he's gonna finish this last villa, and he's gonna be gone. And if we can't, I mean, we were under the understanding that he would have the responsibility to finish the street when everything was completed. Because now they're still running some big trucks and heavy equipment. They've destroyed the street. I mean, there's places in there with just in little chunks like this, and it's one more winter, it's gonna just totally fall apart. So that was my question.
Okay. Yeah, and I was going to say, I was going to direct it to Mark.
Yeah.
I know that it was an issue brought up to.
Yeah, briefly, Mr. Russo is not party to the subdivider's agreement with the city. That was entered into by the original subdivider, but that agreement is binding upon the successors and assigns of the parties. So I've given the city manager my opinion that Mr. Russo, he can finish the last house and be done, but he is bound by the terms of that agreement to complete both the paving that you're describing, as well as correct any deficiencies in the drainage pursuant to the plan that had been submitted. There was a plan submitted relative to paving and draining with that development. When Mr. Russo obtains that development, he becomes the successor to the agreement with the city to complete all of that. And we're going to hold him to that. I don't know where the city manager is in that process, but that's been my opinion to the city manager, is we have that agreement, we can enforce that agreement. It doesn't matter if Mr. Russo finishes the last house. Nothing magical about that. Our subdivider agreement doesn't terminate at that time.
Have we told him, Mr. Russo, that?
Yes, and coincidentally, I have an appointment to meet with Mr. Russo tomorrow to go over the drainage issue with him.
Okay.
Because we heard that possibly there was from a previous meeting that there might have been a consulting firm coming in to take a look at the DRA. Because we, the residents that live there, don't know if everything's proper or
Well,
not.
the city engineer, MS Consultants, would have done that. But they would have calculated the original requirements, et cetera.
Yeah, there was a plan submitted when the development was being proposed, which was approved by our city engineer. And it showed the outline of the retention basin and all of the pipe configurations. And my meeting with him tomorrow, as part of my visual inspection, is that when they built the homes along the back or the east side of the property, it looks as though they encroached upon that area that was a retention basin.
Right.
And that's what our purpose of our meeting tomorrow is, to discuss that. He was of an opinion that they had not encroached upon it, so.
Dennis, so the 2 things you were concerned about, one is the clock isn't going to run out on him,
Okay.
and he's accountable,
Yes,
and the city will hold him accountable.
correct.
He's already having a meeting with him tomorrow, so.
So those are the 2 concerns
That's very good.
that you feel more comfortable.
Now, that's not going to say that it's going to go easy. Mr. Russo may say, I'm
We-
not
Right,
obligated.
his feet,
I
right.
know it.
And then, but so do I. So do I.
And most
We
likely that's,
understand.
could happen.
But we'll take action to enforce our agreement. We have an agreement.
Okay, that's all, 'cause otherwise it's a really big burden on the
I
residents,
understand.
and there's only 20 of us.
That's why they
We have to
signed.
pay to
Right.
fix our own street.
Right.
That's, your street might be a private street, but it still has to be constructed pursuant to the plan submitted, and it's not.
Okay.
And the drainage has to be completed as the plans were submitted, and it's not.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thanks, guys.
Paul Rankin, 17, Paul Rankin, 31 Barnstone. And since you've answered some of those questions, I can probably make this a little shorter. Because I did talk to Mr. Reno earlier, back in the end of June, and he said he was going to talk to Mr. Fortunato about the legality of it. And so Mr. Russo, unfortunately, we've sent him registered letters from the association, and I'm assuming, at least you told me you were going to, from the city as well, but he does not respond at all to written material. So if you have a personal meeting set up with him, that's all I would ask, is that you go over this in person, because the letter means nothing to him. He just tosses it in the waste paper basket. And as long as he complies with that, with the agreements, I can save a lot of time and effort. I'll just reiterate that,
Okay.
the same concerns. And as long as you guys follow through with it, I'll be happy.
That's our intention.
Yes, sir. Sheriff Shayna?
Shayna,
You're up.
So
So I'm from the same camp over here. But
Name and address, please.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shana Piro, it's 20 Barnstone Lane. My concern is with the winter coming and our street not being paved and the safety risks with our residents, how quickly are we gonna know when that street's gonna get paved?
Again, also, I mean,
Yeah.
and I'm not, by any means, I don't have that answer.
And
But
neither do
I can give you an answer of this. Most likely, it's not gonna be paved by the time the snow falls.
I don't think it will be.
Because I just worry about the safety with our residents because
Right.
the condition of the street
Sure.
and the street is sunk and
Right.
with the snow and the ice, it's gonna be atrocious.
No, I
So,
took a drive back the other day when it was brought to my attention, and I do know where you're coming from. But again, how we just spoken, letters have been sent and contact.
Okay.
He's gonna have a meeting with him tomorrow. Hopefully that gets addressed and we can move him quickly.
Okay. Are we
Again,
gonna be informed of
Well,
everything
yeah,
that's
that would be
going
my
on?
concern. We'll,
I guess after the meeting
Yeah, I can,
tomorrow, Joe?
if you want to leave your contact information, I probably still have your contact information.
yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
And
hopefully, later.
I can let you know what the outcome of
I
tomorrow's
appreciate
meeting
that,
is.
or I'll try to contact you Friday. Say the meeting's tomorrow.
Okay, yes.
I'll try to contact you
Give me a
Friday.
call Friday.
That'd be great, I'll do that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Frank Makia?
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Frank McKee, I reside at 220 Glenview. I think I'm living in a different time zone or a time warp situation here. We're supposed to have 5 minutes for each person to speak. That limit has been posed on me several times.
They actually didn't run out of their time.
First speaker spoke 8.5 minutes. Anyhow, if the 5 minute applies to me, it applies to everybody. And looking back at last meeting, we wouldn't have had this episode we had last meeting, running 2 hours or something like that, had that limit been enforced.
Actually, the limit was enforced. There was several people. I know I was,
There was no one
So
under
no,
5.
okay, well.
One under 5 minutes. In addition, you're supposed to sign up if you want to speak, and last meeting we had several walk-ins. I mean, is that part of our process?
that will never happen again.
Good job. The last meeting was something to behold. A comment was made here about the city manager on ordinance enforcement and it's complaint driven. I disagree with that. The ordinances are there, they were passed by the council here, they're in place. Why does somebody got to complain to have them enforced? Let me offer a suggestion. Why is it that our zoning inspector can't take 2 hours a week and drive around a particular quadrant of the city and just check things out? That way it's not completely, that the city is proactive instead of having to wait for somebody to complain. Many people are hesitant to complain because situations with their neighbors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We should be the ones fighting the problems. Next topic, boards and commissions. There should be a council member on all the boards and commissions. There is not one on parks, I don't think. Now, why is it that the council members who are there do not come to this meeting and report as to what's going on? Let me cite Mr. Morley. He's on the fire board. He's kind enough to come to every meeting and he tells us what's going on. We don't hear squat from parks and commissions, planning and zoning, historical preservation. In addition, those commissions do keep the minutes. And why is it we don't post those minutes on the website so everybody can see what's going on in those areas?
If I can just interject, I know the planning and zoning, the information that usually comes across there that I'm chair of, if that information needs to be brought to this council, it does get brought to this council, and that's when all that stuff gets brought up. And most of that stuff always gets brought up into this.
We do hear from the zoning inspector.
Okay.
We don't hear from historical preservation, we don't hear from parks. So post the minutes on the website. Shouldn't be too big a job, Patty. In addition, just one of my own pet peeves, I guess, is these boards and commissions don't report to anybody. They should be accountable to somebody. I think council should be the organization that they are accountable to. You should be, in my opinion, an oversight as to what's going on there. I don't know whether each of you get the minutes or not, but I certainly think council should know what's going on there. And let me cite as an example, this here house, the Canfield house. That turned into somewhat of a fiasco, but I think with a little oversight on the part of the council, we might have been able to short circuit some of that issue that went on.
Can I respond to that?
Certainly.
That's not the way the Constitution of the city was written. The Constitution of the city is its charter. It was written to provide that those entities, boards and commissions are independent. And while they are appointed by council, they remain independent. That's what the founders of the city charter intended. So what you're recommending there really, it's fine. You want to change the charter, you change the charter, but you're rewriting the Constitution of the city.
And they recommend, and their decisions from those boards are recommendations to us.
At times, but not always. Yeah. They're final arbiter many times. But that's the way the Constitution of the city was written.
Referring to, Mark, if you can point me to that.
What's that? My argument?
Yeah.
My argument is a lack in the charter of any language relative to any commission that gets overseen or subject to appeal by council. Doesn't exist anywhere, except in rare occasions. So clearly they intended those bodies and boards and commissions to be independent of council.
I personally have a problem with that.
Well, and you may.
All right, I still think...
Your question?
I only have 5 minutes.
Well, actually, your 5 minutes is up, right?
You guys are taking up my time.
But I'll give you this extra 3 minutes, okay?
You've got a big heart.
Go ahead, I'll ask the question later.
The Canfield home, the Judson Canfield home, I understand it's being purchased.
Mike?
Correct. Stacy Davison, sitting agreeing with Paul Crossman.
My question is, are we going to apply the same process and procedure to that home as we've applied to Kirk Street? I mean, do we have a timeline? Do we have what our expectations are for that new owner? Because what we did for Kirk Street, we got to be doing to this owner too.
I think that's a good question. I think that was the question that I brought up also when I found out that there was a buyer of the home, that if there was going to be a timeline of when they were going to actually fix up the property, if they wanted to bring that back up to.
We have just limited property maintenance on maybe a few issues, but on the inside, we can't control what's going on in that house. It's never been condemned, was never ready for demolition.
Does it have power?
No, it does not have power.
The state is starting to...
She's in the process of getting electricity on
No
it.
water, power, gas.
Well, she's gonna put electricity on it just so she can get in there and do some work.
Right.
Yeah, it might be uninhabitable, but that's a decision for the fire chief.
Should we encourage the fire chief to take a look at it and see whether it is inhabitable or uninhabitable, so we know where we stand?
But if she's gonna put the work in and fix it up, I don't wanna send someone in there and says, you can't fix the house up. I mean, she's willing to go in there and try to restore it. She's gonna clean the inside out.
Yeah, but if it is uninhabitable now, and it is full of mold or whatever, animals or whatever,
Bad crap is what it is.
whatever, we gotta have some sort of time schedule as to when that's gonna be remediated, in my opinion.
No, we've never went in there and done anything to say it wasn't habitable.
Can we do that?
The city manager can direct the fire chief to do that.
Okay.
I can't, consider the zoning inspector.
Let me move on so I don't run over too much time.
Time to run out, Frank.
Check registers, question. Over $16,000 was paid to MS in August. Is this above, we had budgeted like $35,000 a year for, this year for the consulting fees, I believe. Now, is this $16,000 in addition to or part of the monies originally allocated?
What was the description for the check?
Just said MS, as I recall. There were 3 checks written in August.
Probably a lot of it was for the street paving project. And that's a separate contract from their regular engineering.
That's in addition to the regular.
Yeah.
There was also $2,160 paid on August 5th to Erica Owen.
She is the person that cleans the buildings in Fair Park after
She
rentals.
does maintenance in the Fair Park. Is that all right? annual basis, and what's it, the $2,000 is for what period of time?
She has a contract.
She has a contract, and I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it's probably for half a month for cleaning this building and the police department, and then whatever cleanings she goes after each rental at Fair Park, so however many there were.
Rentals at Fair Park, oh, when we rent it out, she could.
Right, she goes and cleans it afterwards.
So that $2,000 seems like a lot of money, but can I get that job? Okay, last item. We paid on August 12th, the Mahoning County Treasurer / Sanitary, $82,089 for monthly op and maintenance. What is that?
That's for our sanitary sewer processing,
We pay them $82,000 a month. We recoup that through our fees.
for what the citizens are billed for sanitary sewer.
Yeah. We recoup that in the sewer and water charges. Sewer.
Yeah.
In the sewer
Sewer
charges.
Sewer charge, yeah, the sewer charge.
That's to let us use their pipes.
No, okay.
It's a treat case, it's for
And to treat,
treatment.
and to
They do
treat.
the treatment.
Just wanted, thank you.
The same thing with the cleaning, when someone rents the park, that money that goes into the rental pays the cleaning of that facility,
So there is some.
for that portion of
There is
it.
some income offsetting that.
That's correct.
Okay.
Frank,
Yes.
a question with regard to your question about minutes. Were you suggesting that council should receive minutes and report something at council meetings, or were you suggesting that council ought to have some authority over the boards and commissions?
That's a two-part question. Number one, I would think that council should receive minutes of the boards and commissions. And I would think that the council member who sits on that board or commission should report what's going on in that commission. The second question was,
Did you think the council had oversight with regard to control their operations?
I think council should have oversight as to what they're doing, yes. I think there should be some oversight on what they're doing,
Okay.
in my opinion.
In that case, I concur with Mark on the second part of your question, because they were set up to be independent boards. Granted, council should know what they're doing. Council can report on what they're doing, but council should not dictate how they do their jobs and that kind of thing, such as somebody brings a project into the design review committee for a review of a structure. Council should not have the authority to override their decision as to how they reach their decision on that.
No,
That's politicizing the process. I mean, it's not what was intended.
One example I would cite is the Canfield, Judge Canfield home, when it was decided that it could not be torn down.
Right.
That, in my opinion, was not in the best interest of the city, and council should have got involved.
And I think a response that I had to that was, I thought that maybe we, council, needs to pass an ordinance which would give us authority in that particular situation to have the final decision with regard to demolition of a historic structure.
Yeah, maybe the routine day-to-day things, fine. But when something big comes up, like it's going to be, something would be for the benefit of the city, it's time for you guys to interject yourself. That's my point.
Well heard. Thanks, Frank.
Good night.
Frank, take this.
Vicki Palmer?
She left.
She left.
Yeah, she's yours.
Binder.
Kathy King?
Who's this? Who's this?
Hi, I'm Kathy King. I live at 405 Bradford, and this is going to be really quick because the first thing you already took care of, which was Halloween. And the second thing I really wanted to ask Chief Calucci about, but since he left, I guess I'll have to just talk to him tomorrow. And I was looking for a little traffic enforcement on Bradford in the mornings. I live pretty close down to the end of where the swim club is at, and the kids are using that in the morning as a highway going to school. So if he could just maybe send a car over there to sit every so many days, once a week, something, because it's, you've got middle school kids out there.
Sure.
waiting on the bus, and you've got these high school kids who wait till the last minute to get out of bed to try and make school on time. But I will see if I can get a hold of him tomorrow and see if he can help me out with that issue. But thank you very much.
I think the manager probably...
I could pass that information on as well.
I would appreciate that, thank you very much.